really enjoy working with leaders because of several reasons, but one of the reasons is that they have a lot of influence, and the more influence they have and the larger the group of people that they are leading, the more significant and the more profound the work that I do will be, not only for them but for a larger group of people. Also, the larger the group that this person is leading, the more complex the topics will be, which I find quite enjoyable because I love a challenge. So when it comes about cultural design, changing how organizations run, how leadership is implemented, I think it's a very interesting topic and a very challenging one, and that's what I love about it most. It's really amazing to work with a leader for a couple of months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes up to a year, because you really get to see the journey they go through. You see them growing in mental clarity and focus, in purpose for their leadership. You see them growing in terms of stress management, resilience, becoming better at setting boundaries. And it's so rewarding to see leaders who are already in a leadership position or who are working towards that really step into that leadership role and identify their own strengths but also challenges, and then with those challenges apply the techniques that we work on together, and then their feedback on how that went in their day-to-day work life, and the changes that they see and the feedback that they get from their team and their leaders is really rewarding and really profound. Leadership is a skill set. It is not a position. There are unfortunately a lot of people in leadership positions that don't necessarily possess leadership skills. Like any skills, leadership skills can be trained, they can be learned, and they can be practiced, and therefore they can be developed. Nobody is born with leadership skills. You can be born with leadership potential, but in order to grow those skills, you need to practice them and focus on them. Now, when it comes to leadership research, there is luckily a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of research been done about what makes leadership successful. And it might not be what you think it is. When it comes to leadership, what actually makes it successful is things like resilience, self-management, the ability to embrace ambiguity, the ability to see things from a bigger picture and to keep that bigger perspective even when things are under stress. Leadership becomes successful when people possess the skills to have leadership presence, to have great communication skills, to be able to build connections, to get people to both comply and be fully engaged with what's going on. And these skills are not necessarily the things that people focus on when it comes to leadership development. Very often leadership training and development is focused on professional skills, hard skills. And sometimes a little bit of attention goes to soft skills. But the truth is, to be a great leader, what the research shows is that we need an entirely different set of skills, and that's called self-skills. How well you are able to manage your brain, to manage stress, to manage decision-making, to keep your brain online, to keep all the brain resources engaged, even when you're under high stress. That's what we call self-skills. And research shows that excellent self-skills is directly linked to excellent leadership performance. Now, how do you develop self-skills? Like anything, it comes from having insight into what your strengths and challenges are, then learning and practicing research-based techniques to further develop those areas that need attention. And because we all have blind spots, that process is best done with someone who's outside of the organization, who is objective, and who's going to be able to hold you accountable for practicing and implementing these new skills. And that's where leadership coaching comes in. In my work with leaders, one of the main topics that comes up is that many find it difficult to set boundaries, and not just leaders. I think managers and professionals, boundary setting is difficult, and a lot of us find it challenging. For a leader, boundary setting is essential because otherwise you risk spending all your time on fighting fires, ticking the boxes, doing all the day-to-day stuff, and you never get enough time to actually do the leadership stuff because it doesn't fit nicely into a box, it doesn't fit nicely into a to-do list. Usually they are the non-urgent things, but the crucial things and the things that have a lot of impact. So boundaries are incredibly important, especially as a leader. And as a leader, your time is your most valuable resource. Therefore, you need to protect your time and you need to be very deliberate with how you spend your time. And boundaries are essential when it comes to that. As a leader, it's important to know what your particular leadership style is because it will tell you both your strengths and the challenges that you face as a leader. And what I have identified, and many other professionals with me, is that there's 3 types of leaders. There is the leadership type or the archetype that is called the fixer, sometimes called the rescuer. And the fixer has the need and the desire to fix problems, to help people. And they're incredibly caring, attentive, lovely people. They care about people and they want to help people, which is really, really nice. But there's some risks in that, especially if you are a leader and you have that style. The risk is that you become overworked because you're constantly solving problems and fixing things for other people. Work-life balance will be at risk because there's always problems to solve, there's always things to fix, there's always people to help. And as a leader who has the fixer archetype, it will be difficult to say no. And it will be difficult to manage and have boundaries around what you say yes and what you say no to, because you will be inclined to say yes because you want to be helpful. If this is the leadership type that you are, the style that you have, the risks are also that your team will become dependent on you, because the fixer, even though it comes from really, really good intention, what the fixer does is it fixes problems for people. And in that sense, it takes over the responsibility from those people. Rather, it would be better if, as a leader, you would coach your people into solving these problems themselves. So one tip I have for people who have the fixer leadership style is to keep in mind that it's better to coach people than to help them. When you coach them, you allow them to take responsibility and to grow and to learn. And you can assist them in that growth with your knowledge, with your expertise, but you can do that in a caring way without taking over responsibility, which is better for them and better for you. Now, the second leadership archetype is called the friend. And again, the friend, just like the fixer, is incredibly caring, values relationships. The friend's strengths are their focus on relationships and working on having genuine, real connection with the people that they lead, which is a good thing. But for the friend, the risk is that they become too friendly, too casual, too personal, and that they try to use the relationship to drive people towards certain things. And as a result, their authority is challenged. People who have this leadership style find it difficult to hold people accountable. They find it difficult to have clear standards for performance and to call people out on it when those standards are not met. As a result, the risk for the leader is that the leader feels stuck. When things go well, it's okay, but when things don't go well, the leader who has this type of leadership style feels stuck because they have never set clear boundaries, they have never had that level of authority, and they have usually not held people accountable. And then to change that feels really difficult, and then they feel stuck. The risk for the team is that the stronger team members need to pick up the slack for the weaker ones, because the weaker ones are not held accountable for the things that they should be held accountable for. Also, the friend leader often, after a while, finds themselves in a team culture that lacks transparency and can turn very negative and can lead to gossip because they haven't been transparent They haven't been holding people accountable. They have been developing special relationships with some people, and it can lead to a lot of negativity and undermine their authority. So the tip that I have for the leaders who recognize themselves in that style is to remember to be a boss and not a buddy, and to invest in relationships outside of work to fulfill that need, and to make sure that from the beginning, especially with new people, they set clear boundaries and have systems in place that make sure that they hold people accountable. The third leadership archetype is the fighter. The fighter is full of energy and full of great ideas, but the risk of the fighter is that they take too much space in the team and they don't leave enough space for the team members' ideas, and that can lead to frustration. Also, the fighter tends to start projects but not necessarily finish them, and they can be a little bit impatient and not necessarily see the small wins, which can lead to frustration for both the leader and the team. The tip that I have for the fighter is to learn to hold back, to learn to lead from the back, to try and make space for the ideas of the other people on the team, and then see how that improves their engagement and their commitment. The big question that every company and organization struggles with is, how do we attract and how do we keep the really talented people? And I think leadership plays an important role in that. I think the leadership of the future is leadership that is focused on values and purpose-driven leadership. People are no longer very interested in working for a boss or working for a brand and having a big paycheck. What they're looking for is inspiring leaders who value the people that work with them, that work for them, leaders that lead by example, leaders that are forerunners when it comes to sustainability, innovation, and having a social impact. I think leadership of the future will be leaders who embody those things, not just through the words that they speak, but also through what they do on a day-to-day basis. I think leadership of the future includes these things in a very practical, a very real way, and a way that's tangible for everyone, and is not just a mission statement, but is actually something that the company lives and breathes, and that starts with the leaders. Millennials have gotten a bit of a bad reputation lately, and I don't necessarily think that's completely fair. Every generation has its strengths and its challenges, and certainly so do millennials. At the same time, I think there is an element there that people haven't really been recognizing. And what stands out to me is that millennials aren't necessarily hard to motivate, they are hard to motivate the old way. They don't have that same connection with working for a big brand, having a big paycheck. They don't have the same loyalty. They're no longer willing to work crazy hours and be loyal for years and years and years just because of the option of promotion. Millennials have a need to feel like they're doing something that adds value, especially when it comes to social impact. They want to feel like they are having that they are contributing to a greater cause. They want to feel like there is purpose in what they're doing. They want to feel like what they do on a day-to-day basis is linked to the values of the company and to the mission statement of the company. And when a company nails that, I think you'll see that millennials have great energy, great dedication, great ideas, innovation, and all those stereotypes that are out there might not apply anymore. If you look at psychology, there is a model that we often look to when it comes to human behavior, and it's called Maslow's pyramid. And what we see in that pyramid is that there are basic needs. At the basic level, we have the needs for shelter and food. Then above that comes what we call the psychological needs, and part of that is having a sense of belonging, a sense of being loved, but also a sense of, they call it the esteem needs, which is the need for prestige and the need for a sense of achievement. The highest level of needs are called self-actualization needs or self-fulfillment needs. And I sometimes wonder if that is what we see when it comes to the difference between the millennials and the generations before that. Millennials seem to be really focused on having a purpose, fulfilling the need of self-actualization is higher on their agenda than it was for the generation before them. The generation before them was attracted to big brands, big paychecks, and were very loyal to that. They wanted a sense of achievement that is very much linked to, or in some situations linked to, materialism. Millennials don't seem to have that desire as strongly. Their desire is more about personal fulfillment, working for a company that develops them, invests in them, and doing work that has meaning, especially when it comes to sustainability and when it comes to having a social impact. So I don't think that millennials are necessarily lazy or unengaged and don't take responsibility. I think the way the leadership they will respond to is different than the leadership that the previous generation responded to.